First assignment was, I was assigned as a lineman, electrician. And after school, I went to McCoy Air Force Base in Orlando. And being young and want to travel and adventure and all that stuff, I was ready to move on and get a little adventure. And after 2 years, you'd get an assignment. And I was working at the ammunition dump. And the sergeant there said, hey, you want to get out of here? You want to travel? I said, yeah. He said, there's something going on in Vietnam. I know what it is, but they're going to give you hazardous duty pay. Well, I was making $3,000 a year, $65 extra a month sounded pretty good, and travel. So I signed up, went on leave the next day, got up there in Boston, and it was a telegram, get back here. So I raced back to the base, and if you understand Vietnam, the president signed off and sent the troops in big bundles, but they didn't send the engineers. And that's where we were. So they finally, the generals woke up and said, we need to get the engineers here. I got back to the base. I had orders to go from there to Hamilton Air Force Base and then to a place called Vietnam. I didn't know what Vietnam was. I had to go to the library and look up a National Geographic to see what it was. And I was all set. So I headed off for Hamilton Air Force Base to have combat training. So that hazardous duty pay was starting to make sense. And just to show how they rushed us there, the first day they told us to wake up, pack your bags and put them by the door and go to training. So I went to M16 training. I qualified on that Grand, a carbine, but when I had the M16, I was an ace, 60, 70 and 70, right in the bullseye. And that day we finished up. The next day we had hand grenades, parked our bags outside, and a minute of break time, buses pulled up. They said, we're canceling your week's training. You're going to Vietnam. They raced us over there, 18 hours. We came into Ton Son Nhut, where we were going to work. And a pilot came on and said, we're going to do a deep combat ascent so we don't get shot at. And I said, combat. Right away, that word kept popping up, combat. Landed at Ton Son Nhut, went straight down the chute, landed, opened the cockpit, opened the door. We stepped out, and the entire, it just stunk. It blew you away. The stink was so bad. And welcome to Vietnam. Yeah, it was a lot of hard work, and there was danger involved, and learned a lot of things there. I grew up there, I guess, because I was still young. And the biggest thing I learned to pray. I learned to pray because we did have some mortar attacks, and there was always some shooting going on, and I didn't have a rifle. I was an engineer. In fact, the colonel said, don't carry your weapons. You're here to work. The big red ones out there to protect us, there's 29,000 troops. And if they get through those guys, you ain't going to stop them. Just go to work. So we did. And I had a couple of incidents there where I shouldn't be here today. I should be gone. I got a call we had a mortar attack one night, and generator crew called, needed electricians. So I raced over there. It was dark and muddy, and we had to push a wheeled generator, about 150 kW, into the site to repair the transformers. We pushed it in, we fixed it, went home, went to sleep. The next day, the generator guys are yelling for me to come back. I said, why, it doesn't work? They said, no, it works fine, I want to show you something. So we got to where the generator was on the road, and we saw the tracks pushing it towards the transformers. And there was my footprints on the right-hand back side. You could see my footprints, and they finally said, stop, don't go any further. And I could see my footsteps stepping right on a mortar round, right on it, and it didn't go out. Wow. I say, somebody's looking out for me, so I don't know. And a couple of incidents like that were close calls. I can remember we had a number of mortar attacks, but we had one there where the Vietnamese were not allowed on the base after the attack, so we had to do all the work. And when I first got there, I lived in what we call a hooch. It was a screened enclosure, the hooches. And I lived there, and the first sergeant came up and says, you can't live here. And I said, it's across the street from where I work. He said, no, you and Jordan get over to the engineering compound. Well, he got after us for about a week, and finally he made us move. So we moved, but long story short, after the mortar attack, many months later, I'm on the pole, and I was fixing the wires, and I looked down at my old hut, and there was a hole in the center of the hut. I said, I wonder what that's about. So I called Jordan, and I come off the pole, and I walked around, I walked in the hut. My bunk, the mortar round hit the bunk and blew everybody up, killed everybody. I would have been in that bunk if the first sergeant didn't order me to move. Yeah. So I had a number of experiences like that, It's somebody was on my shoulder, guardian angel, I don't know, somebody. So I'll tell you one other story. You want to hear stories, right? Myself and Woody, he was a Hell's Angel, member of the Comancheros, and it was my buddy. And we wanted to go to town. Well, to go to town, you had to go out the gate where the tanks and the machine guns were and get in a taxi, but the taxis were pushed back about 100 yards, so they wouldn't be by the gate. And we stepped out, and there happened to be a taxi sitting there that was getting ready to leave. And the guy said, go ahead, take that. So we took the taxi, went down, had something to eat, stopped and had a beer, and we come back to the base. We walked in, and the guys were all still awake at 9 o'clock. And they jumped up, they said, there you are. I said, yeah, we're here. He said, you didn't get killed? I said, we didn't killed. We had a beer and a meal. We didn't get killed. And they said, well, after you left, 10 minutes after you left, they blew up the taxi stand 100 feet away. Wow. I wasn't there again. I was on Conley, heading downtown. They jumped in and beat me up for wasting their time in the hospital looking for me. That's a true story. The best story was Woody, Doc Comanchetti. He decided to get us a pet. Well, we went down to the market and he got a duck, a Muscovy duck. I said, how about a dog or a cat, Woody? No, Woody wanted a duck. He grew up on a farm and he wanted a duck. So we got a duck, we got a dog tag for it. We called him Duck Donald L. And he went around at night and he ate our biscuits from our sea rations, and he was around every night, and the guys in Tennessee would talk to him. They talked duck. I can't talk duck. They did. And the duck liked to listen to him talk. So one guy says, where does the duck go at night? We don't know. Well, we found out, because next to our hooch, we had a bunker, sandbag bunker to go into. And we hadn't used it yet at that time. And we had a mortar attack one night, and everybody jumped in their gear. We run out. We dove in the bunker, and we dove in there. We landed in duck poop. The entire bunker was covered with duck droppings. And John George was sitting next to me. He says, I can't take this no more. All this duck stuff, I can't take. And he stood up, and he went to go out, and we had a hand grenade toss, so you can't throw the hand. And he got to the hand grenade, and a motor round landed right outside and lit the bunker up. He come right back. He says, I'll take the duck. So my first experience where nobody took a picture was me with my combat gear covered in duck poop. I can't say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a young man because I didn't know any better. But I did learn to pray. And basically, the biggest thing I learned was the meaning of life, how important life is. Because we took care of all the buildings, and one of our buildings across the street was the Tonsanute morgue, where all the casualties would come there. And the first time I went in there, and I walked in a room, probably 30 by 30, and it was littered with guys that had been killed, ready to go back to the States. And you realize here's 30 young men, 20 years old, and their life's over. And that could be you, So you really I need to start watching out what I do. And I worked in that morgue for a whole year helping those guys out. It was tough.
Yeah.
But it brings home exactly what it's all about. It's not Hollywood. None of us were Rambos. I never saw Rambo. Rambo never came to our outfit. I mean, if you run across the field with bandoliers in an M60, you're gone in about 20 seconds. You're not going to be alive anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, that's Hollywood. Hollywood shows Vietnam in one way, but it's not really what war's all about. It's about the support troops and the nurses and the doctors and the cooks. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
You can't work without the support troops. When we got there, we had nothing. We had bologna sandwiches every meal for 2 weeks when I first got there, because they had rushed everybody over there. So fried bologna for breakfast is not my favorite, but I did eat it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you want to hear some fun stories, is which I'm all about, is we had a guy, Evans, his young kid, 18 years old, he worked in the line crew with us, and he got a letter from his girlfriend. They weren't going to get married. The girl he proposed to on his way to Vietnam, he said, forget it. And he was distraught. So my buddy Woody again says, I tell you what, we went around to all the guys, we collected pictures of women. And we put them in the bag. We told everyone, send a letter to your ex-fiancée, ask her to go through the pictures and pick out hers and send back the rest. We had some good times like that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you about the bad times. It was a busy experience. It was a growing up experience, coming from a seminary, going in the Air Force, going to Vietnam. And then finally, when I got back, I got married. Went to the Air Force Academy for 4.5 years, figured the war will be over. I had orders to go back to Vietnam in the 70s. And they diverted me to Guam. And we worked just as hard because, have you ever seen a B-52? Ever walk around one? You must have, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anderson Air Force Base, we had 255 B-52s, 29 squadrons on Guam. And it was 7 days a week. My wife was there. She had been there previously. And she said, why did I come be with you? I haven't seen you in months. Because you were an aircraft mechanic, it takes a tremendous amount of work to get those B-52s loaded and off One day we launched 115 bombers at one time. Linebacker 2 was the operation. And they started at 12. B-52 takes 2.5 minutes to go down the runway. You've seen them? They went down that runway till 3:45, one after the other. Just kept going. It was amazing. And we did that for 11 days, except Christmas. SAC. I was in SAC 14 and a half years. And SAC calls up and says, we're going to have Christmas on the 24th. What? They moved Christmas to, because it's a day to generate a mission. So they moved us to the 24th for Christmas, and we generated aircraft on Christmas Day. The Vietnamese would figure we're not going to bomb till the day after.
Yeah.
We bombed the day after Christmas. Surprise, surprise.
Wow.
But SAC had the power to move Christmas to another day.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful SAC. And the other thing I'll say, if we're talking about, people talk about PTSD and all that stuff. I didn't have an experience of that because staying in the Air Force, every time I went to work with my medals, I got recognition. I didn't get that, you know. I didn't get what those poor guys got out and had to do for those 24 years. One last thing I'll tell you, if you want to wrap it up. When we came back from Vietnam, there was 180 guys on the aircraft, Army, right out of the boonies. These guys they were the tip of the spear. And there was 5 Air Force guys. And we got to Travis, and the colonel come up. We used to have to travel in uniform at that time. And the colonel says, I want you to go in the bathroom and put your civilian clothes on, put your civvies on. Why? He says, we're going into San Francisco, and we don't want you in uniform. I mean, they didn't like us at all. So we got to San Francisco airport, we got on the aircraft, and 5 of us were sitting in the back. And the stewardesses came up and said, you guys are in Vietnam? Yeah, we just came back. Coming up, they put us in first class all the way.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. How do you think that your time in Vietnam during the war, how do you think that would impact the rest of your life? How did that shape who you became?
It was a launching. I launched after that.
Yeah.
I realized, number one, how important my life is. I learned to pray. I really did. I was in a mortar attack there one time, and I remember praying. Now, I'm Irish Catholic, so they have these rote prayers, same prayers. Everybody says the same. I learned to pray man to man. I just said, if you can let me get through this, let me live to 35. Well, I'm 83. So I said, I'll do whatever I can do for you, for people.
Yeah.
I spent my whole life in volunteering and helping people out because of that. I just had this urge. Yeah. But I think Jesus takes advantage of me because I asked for 35. He's still got a hold of me, and I'm 83. And he's going to let me live forever, I think. Yeah. Because I do a food bank, and I've done food banks. I used to drive the van for the veterans up to Tampa. My whole life after retirement has been 23 years Little League umpire.
Yeah.
That was a great job, by the way, because I was the first sergeant. Didn't bother me at all. Yeah. Yelled at me. No, but it did make a difference on me.
Yeah.
Because of that, how important life is and important, you need to give back.
Yeah.
I'll tell one more story, all right? About the monkey. We had a guy named Gardner. He worked for the first sergeant. He worked 8 hours a day. We hated him, but he lived in our barracks. You got time? Anyways, he comes home one day and he's got a monkey. And he puts a monkey outside. So, Gardner, get rid of the monkey. The first night the monkey's there, it's chirping all night long. We're wide awake. So we told him the next morning, Gardner, get rid of the monkey. Gardner says, no. First sergeant says, I can have it. So the next night, we all go to sleep, the monkey's chirping, all of a sudden it gets quiet. I woke up, and we had to walk to the binjo, the bathroom, with our towels, and there was the monkey with his throat cut. Somebody killed the monkey. Wow. I thought, oh, this is not good. First sergeant gonna have a thing. So Gardner was trying to find out who killed the monkey. And I used to kid my buddy Rodriguez. I said, now you're Mexican. He said, I think the Mexican did it. No, you're racist. I said, I'm not racist. I think you did it. I think you had the stiletto. Anyways, many years later at the Air Force Academy, Rodriguez and Gardner get assigned to the same unit with me. So a couple other guys, we decided to have a party in my basement, the reunion. And Rodriguez has 2 drinks and he's getting a little fired up. And finally he looks at Gardner and he says, Mr. Gardner, you miss your monkey? Gardner says, my monkey? I killed your monkey. I went, the Mexican did it. I knew it. And they got in a big kind of tumble, but he looked at that guy and he says, Gardner, you miss your monkey?
Yeah.
But we were working, we needed our sleep, and he had this monkey. So I guess the monkey, with all the deaths we had there, you had a monkey too. So 53 casualty and a monkey. So